Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our HCD CDBG office hours. Can somebody send us a ping and let us know that they can hear us? Can you hear us? All right, I see we have 25 attendees on. Can somebody send a chat just to make sure that they have volume and they can hear us? Anybody? Oh, okay, yay, so that can hear us. Yay. Okay. So just a little bit of background about today and how this is going to work is we are here to answer your questions, all things CDBG, and we want to be able to provide you with some real-time answers to what your questions are. And so if you want to ask a question, you would go ahead and go to your webinar questions. You can see the box on the right-hand side, what that looks like. And you can click on Ask a Question. You can ask anonymously, or you can put in your name, organization, or region. The team will read questions out loud throughout the presentation to answer your questions. And all of the questions will be saved and recorded as part of the public record. We are going to go ahead and record this. Looks like it is recording now. And get that posted, as well as have the questions come up today be added to our frequently asked questions. Does anybody have a question so far? Okay. So let's just start with an update. We need to let you know that originally we had thought that the NOFA was going to drop yesterday for the COVID CDBG funds. It is still in the process of being final approved. We anticipate that dropping very soon, so keep your eyes on your e-blast, and you will be able to get a notification stating when that has been published. Okay, so shall we get started with questions? If you have a question, please go ahead and type it in now, and we will get ready to answer.
We have a question about the 2018 standard agreement. Do you have an idea when we will receive these?
The 2018 standard agreements, some of them have gone out, as I understand.
So the 2018 CDBG standard agreements are routing, and we've a few people we have a few executed contracts, so we're still working on them. So we're working on them. So anytime soon, you will be getting your 2018 standard agreement. And they will be coming through the grants network system.
Okay. Go ahead.
Our small city has a lot of people delinquent on their water bills. Since COVID, do you think CDBG would pay for a utility assistance fund?
I do believe that is an eligible activity under this NOFA. That would be under a public services. That would be one of your public services programs that you would set up for that, and that is eligible. Next question.
For the ED, business assistance, we would like to provide working capital to small businesses. Can this be a grant or does it need to be a loan?
We are currently working on bringing in forgivable loans into the program. We anticipate having an amended NOFA out that regards ED and forgivable loans soon. I don't have a time frame on that, but it is something we are looking at. Next question.
Can county CDBG funds be spent within city limits if they, the city, do not have a similar program? Will HCD release guidelines on food banks and how to demonstrate meeting national objectives? How do we record the data? Does HCD have a template instructions for completing an ICE? I'm not sure what ICE is. We have seen the procurement trainings, but would like further information on steps. Several jurisdictions are looking to contract and underwriter proposed ED programs with CV funds and would like help with this.
Okay, so let's go with the first question. Can county CDBG funds be spent within city limits if they, the city, do not have a similar program?
They need to get back to you on that.
Yeah, let's get back to you on that one. That'll be a follow-up question for Siskiyou County. We want to make sure you're giving you correct guidance. Will HCD release guidelines on food banks and how to demonstrate national objectives? We are not putting out guidelines for CDBG CV funds. You will use the regular CDBG guidelines, as those are going to govern this funding source as well. So whatever the guidelines for food banks and national objectives that you find in the CDBG guidelines, those will be the ones that you want to use. Does HCD have a template instructions for completing an ICE? Can somebody tell us what you mean by ICE? Let's see, that's her down there. See if, scroll down. Oh, okay, that's the same question.
Same question.
Scroll down. Okay. All right, until we hear back from Siskiyou County on the ICE thing, we'll table that for a second. As soon as I hear back, then we can answer that.
One thing I can add, the question about contracting with somebody to help with ED, that's something that we're going to strongly encourage that you do hire a consultant to help you with your economic development programs.
Yes, we will be looking intensely at that to make sure that you have capacity to run the programs effectively and get that money out to where it can go.
Rent and arrears. We have to, I believe, because now under public services, there are subsistence payments with short-term rent. I'm not sure as far as arrears. I'd have to look at that, but there will be rental payments under subsistence payments, which would be a public service activity.
So we will follow up in the frequently asked questions and more detail with that question. But again, like Connie said, we do allow for public service subsidy payments. So we'll have to see how far that goes into depth. Can services be provided to undocumented workers, persons in COVID-19? Well, I'm really not sure on that one. It's going to be a follow-up. I apologize for that, but that's kind of a question I'm not sure of the answer to. We'll follow up with HUD, and again, that'll come out in the frequently asked questions.
Will the NOFA be able to use for foreclosure counseling?
Any kind of funding that you're using this for has to have a direct nexus to COVID-19. Foreclosure counseling, that's questionable if you can relate that directly to it. But again, I feel bad. Our specialist is out today, and so we're kind of doing the best that we can here today. So let's. A lot
of these questions we will probably end up going in. They will be put into our FAQs, so we give us a chance to research.
Okay.
Is a city with a population of 8,000 in a county that receives entitlement funds eligible to apply for these funds?
No.
In this first round, the allocations are going to non-entitlement. So if you're receiving funds directly from HUD right now, you'll continue to do so. This is for non-entitlement, this first round of COVID funds. Can we use CDBG CV to assist with child care vouchers for those affected by COVID who are now being called back to work?
Again, I believe that might be under your public services.
That's gonna have to be another.
Yeah. As long as you can show the direct nexus to the COVID, we may be able to work with that, but let's follow up on that.
CDBG PI only application, what is the turnaround time? So you're talking about not COVID, but just the PI only applications through our grants network system. It just depends. You go in and submit an application under the activity, whether it's a over-the-counter, housing, non-housing, and if you, we do our reviews when they come in, and when if you've submitted all the required documentation and answered the questions. If we do need to reach out to you, we will. So it really just depends on how complete your application is when you submit it at that time.
And as a reminder, when you are submitting a PI only application, please make sure that you're putting PI application only in your project title. That way we know that those are PI only and not applications being submitted through the Open NOFA.
Are testing, contact tracing, outreach, education, COVID treatment eligible costs?
Yes, they are. Those would be directly related to COVID-19, and those are costs that we can use.
Do you have a document to assist in preparing an income self-certification form for employees who meet the LMJ low-mod jobs national objective? And I believe that's something that we will be working on.
Mm-hmm.
Can my city buy and distribute PPEs to businesses so they can reopen? That also could fall under your economic development activity.
Right, so that is a potentially an eligible activity.
If we apply for the COVID-19 funds when the NOFA comes out, will we be required to use program income revolving loan funds on hand first, as similar to housing rehab programs? Or is this use whatever is awarded?
You would have to use your PI. You can roll it into the application for your COVID, but your PI does have to be used first.
So if you have an open 2017 right now, we want you putting your PI on hand in your 27 open contract. But we are going to be flexible on the rest if you want to go ahead and put it on the PI on top of your COVID funds.
Yes. Oh, independent cost estimates. So that was the ICE question.
You'll have to let us research this a little and get back to you in an FAQ. We'll turn the FAQs around.
They'll be up at the end of the week.
We have several trailers that have been given to us to house homeless at risk for COVID. Could we use the COVID funds to help pay for the space rent associated with their placement and support services for the homeless persons who are placed in the trailers?
Okay.
That's something maybe ESG might.
That sounds like an ESG kind of program.
That may be an emergency solutions grant eligible activity. So ESG also got COVID funding.
But we'll, Arcata, we'll get back to you in more detail on that as well. Who is speaking today? Ah, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Roxanne Kunert. I'm one of the CDBG managers, and Connie Malavia is also here, and she is another CDBG manager. Also on the line is John Dietich. He is our economic development expert, so he's here to answer any questions that come along if we need to unmute him.
Okay. If we apply for ED, can the consultant subrecipient be the jurisdiction's ED commission, or would we have to follow procurement practices? And is that something, John, are you able to open your mic?
Can you hear us, John? Here, there he is.
You there?
We can't hear you, John.
How about now?
Try again.
Can you try me? Can you hear me now?
Okay.
John?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hello.
We can hear you now.
Okay. I got a reverberation in mine. I don't know what that is. I had to go back to the old thing, the old invite to get in. Weird.
John?
Yeah.
So if we apply for economic development, can the consultant or subrecipient be the jurisdiction's economic development commission, or would we have to follow procurement practices?
Say that again?
If I'm a jurisdiction and we apply for economic development, can the consultant or subrecipient be the jurisdiction's economic development commission, or do we have to follow the procurement practices?
What do you mean? What do they mean by commission? What does that mean?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I mean, if they have a consultant, if they procure a consultant, they have to procure a consultant to do ED.
Okay, so that's the answer. Then you do have to go through procurement.
Yeah, you definitely have to. Yeah, you just can't have somebody unless if they have somebody already an ED consultant already on board, and that's part of the duties of that contract. They could use them. Yeah, but if they don't have anybody on board, then they have to go through the procurement process.
So John, to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, so this Economic Development Commission is employees of the jurisdiction, and that's part of their contract, then procurement would not be necessary. But if they are not employees, then we do need to do procurement, correct?
Yeah, they'd have to procure an outside consultant. So let's just outside ED consultant, or if they got some sort. I've never heard of a sub-recipient on the EDs. Well, I guess there has been for like EDTA, but if it's neither one of those other, and they're going to try to do it in-house, then they've already got those people procured in-house, but they got to make sure that that's part of those duties of that person. You know what I'm saying? So they can't have just procured an engineer and said, oh, by the way, he's also going to do ED. If I understand the question correctly.
Okay. So then the next question is another ED question, John. So before jurisdictions procure an economic development consultant, they have to do, and I forgot, an independent cost estimate before the RFP closes. They would like further guidance on how to perform this step.
An independent, okay, so they're talking about the different aspects of their, is it for like the different aspects of a study of some kind? Or
I don't know, that we may have to, maybe we need more detail from this assist you county.
Yeah, so if they're, I mean, they put it out to, they got to put the RFP out there for that consultant and line out exactly what they, what they're looking for in that ED consultant. And then so the receipt of those, basically the responses would sort of do that cost piece of it, right? So it would come back, if you had 3 responses back, that's going to give you the sort of the general idea of what it should cost. If they only get 1 back, we probably ought to have a conversation. That gets into a little bit of technical detail on that. So maybe that's one we can follow up with on them on that.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we had another question on testing, contact tracing.
Yes.
And
We-
Roxanne said that that was eligible under the COVID money.
Under the COVID money.
Okay, perfect. Under that, so when you say COVID, that's the CARES money, right?
That's the allocation.
Okay, cool.
Okay, if we are applying for a public service project whose location is in another non-entitlement jurisdiction, but within the same county, does an agreement between the two jurisdictions need to be submitted with that application? If so, what type of agreement? Pre-award would be required. For instance, a MOU or a letter of collaboration.
We would need documentation of that, and MOU would work fine as well as a letter of collaboration.
And one other point on that too, though, is that they need to keep in mind that generally that if they're going outside of their jurisdiction, it's okay going non-entitled to non-entitled. That's fine. You can go back and forth, right? Because there's benefit, you can use beneficiaries in both of them. However, they have to make the preponderance and the majority of the beneficiaries are supposed to be within the city. So they can't just do it in the city and not, they have to be able to document and validate the steps that they went through to provide whatever they're providing to the residents of that jurisdiction, of that city, before they start going out into the county, because they're supposed, the primary beneficiary should be within the non-entitled jurisdiction itself. So they have to validate and document that, but then they have so many, and they have to just show us what they did to make sure that they basically exhausted their beneficiaries within their city before they go out to the county, or vice versa. It's usually cities going out to counties as opposed to counties going to cities.
Perfect. Thank you, John.
Would you please describe how to best document national objective when CDBG COVID funds are used to purchase the personal protective, or I guess, no, PPE for first responders? How best to document the national objective?
That's going to show up in your application, Chuck. Like with the current applications that we have, once you choose your project type, it's going to give you a drop-down box of eligible national objectives, and you would choose the one that matches that.
And then you'll probably be asked to write a narrative as far as writing the how this is tied to COVID-19. The application asks for, in the 1920 CDBG, so we're not talking COVID, the application asks for project guidelines, activity implementation, plans, strategic plan, or operating plan. If applying for public services program, is one of these preferred or a required component?
That will be a threshold requirement.
This is about
for the CV money. So are you talking just the regular open grant?
I think this person's asking just for the open grant right now. That under public services, the competitive apps that are out there right now, that we're asking for project guidelines, activity implementation plan, strategic plan, or operating plan. If applying for public services, are one of these preferred or required? I believe you can submit any of the above, and none of which are preferred over another.
It has to be one of the four
in ours.
In the open grant, yeah.
Also in the 1920 CDBG, not the COVID, the non-housing competitive application requires a yes or no and information documentation regarding this question. Can you confirm the funding requested is GAAP? What does this mean in relationship to a public service project proposal? What type of documentation is needed? The intent there was originally to document making sure that federal funds were not supplanting, or you were not supplanting with federal funds. I don't think we did a very good job trying to articulate in that application what we wanted for the gap funding. So in this round anyway, that gap funding question is not going to be required, but that was the original intent. Could the funds be used to support the state's Great Plates Delivered program for seniors and those at high risk for COVID-19. So Great Plates, I'm assuming, is like a senior meals?
If that's the case, that is an eligible activity.
Under public services, yes. Can the city give their allocation to this county for distribution? If so, would the city need to state the activity in the application, or can the city cede the money over to the county outside of the NOFA?
That is definitely going to be a conversation to have offline. So we will, if you would send us your contact information, we'd be happy to get back to you and talk about it.
And that was in the CARES funding?
It looks like that they're asking about the CARES funding.
CARES, okay, yeah, because that doesn't fly on the
On the regular one, you can't do that. I don't know that.
And I suspect that's going to be the same for this one, but I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, you can do like a joint, well, yeah, that's a good idea. They probably need to talk to us because well, you guys can do the care side. It's not a CDBG question, but we could have a conversation offline on how that works, because technically 2 jurisdictions can apply, but you can't do it outside or any of that sort of thing that they were suggesting.
Next question. If the city's activity is to distribute PPE to businesses, can the Chamber of Commerce assist in the distribution? Is the Chamber of Commerce considered an exception to procurement? John?
So is all they're doing is they're actually volunteering to distribute the PPEs to the businesses?
So how that would make a difference?
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure how they would, so each business, so if you're going to provide PPEs to a business, that dollar amount has to be tracked specifically to that business. So I'm not sure how they would be able to just go and distribute them, because so the funding for the PPEs would be based upon the national objective and the public benefit requirement of the $35,000 per job for the PPE. So you can't just go and distribute PPEs randomly to businesses. Those would have to be an application specific to that project and to that business, because of the other requirements in terms of providing them. I mean, just the whole underwriting piece of that and determining, the need for and the stability of their current stability of their business and past and all of that. So you can't just distribute randomly PPEs, not under ED. I don't know what you can do on that. I don't think you can do anything on the other side, but under ED, if that's a project, that would be a business project that would come in as an application for that project, for that business.
Okay. And if this person who wrote this wants to talk further, they can also contact us.
Yeah, if they want to send a further question through the CDBG NOFA inbox, we can certainly.
Questions are going to cdbg@hcd.ca.gov.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
If cities use CDBG funding for rent relief, can applicants' information be kept confidential?
Better be.
Will limited clientele be allowed for an application for which proposes using PPE for first responders who are dealing with homeless?
I believe that would be an eligible objective.
I don't know if you can do it. That might be need a further discussion, because I don't know if you can do limited clientele to go to to be like a pass through to because the limited clientele person is actually a homeless person, right? So
counting the first responders as the limited clientele.
Yeah, I don't think they're
Jessica's on the line, so she's replying to this.
Okay. Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see her read on that one.
So as soon as she responds, we'll reply back to you, Chuck. There it is. We'll get back to you.
Jessica says, I'll get back to you. I think we need to be area benefit. When will the recording of this session and the last session be available?
This recording will get online by end of week. Last session, we were having some technical difficulties, so it didn't actually get recorded. However, the questions that were asked are in the frequently asked questions that have been posted. Okay, that looks like all the questions that have come in. Does anyone else have anything else?
We'll wait just a few minutes here.
And just as a reminder, any kind of questions or concerns, we're here to help and walk you through this. So if you have questions, please feel free to email us at cdbg@hcd.ca.gov or give us a call, contact your reps if you have a rep, and we're happy to help you out.
And again, the NOFA should be released, we're hoping, by the end of the week. We're hoping, but again, it's being finalized right now. So, okay, we'll just see if anything
and just as a side note for next week, just a reminder, you need to register for each week. The link that you use today will not work next week. If you've registered, you will receive the link to the meeting on Tuesday morning. So make sure you're registering for those each day.
Okay, we have another question that just came in. Can you explain how we will be income qualifying business owners affected by COVID for ED activities, since it will not be something that is reflected on last year's tax return?
John, I'm going to let you answer this.
Okay, so what'll have to happen on that is they'll have to self-certify. I'm assuming it's job retention. So they're gonna have to self-certify. So if they're gonna retain, they have to meet the national objective. They still have to retain at least 51% of the jobs, and then so they're gonna have to self-certify all of the retained employees to make sure that they meet that national objective. So that's how you're going to determine the low mod versus the non-low mod individuals for the businesses.
Great, thank you, John. Any other questions?
Any news on the CDBG CV Federal Register release? I'm not sure.
No news yet.
Next question, can our city get reimbursed for land purchase where trailers for the homeless are now located?
It does allow for acquisition. However, you've got, again, to make this a direct connection to COVID, the COVID outbreak. So why is it just putting the homeless in trailers, or is this to help them shelter in place? It really depends on how it's structured.
And where are the FAQs posted? I didn't see them.
Let me double check with our comms. They will be posted to the CDBG, HCD CDBG page. They were submitted a couple days ago, so let me follow up and make sure those are posted.
If we already approved a resolution for the 1920 NOFA and now have another activity in this reso completely separate, is this reso completely separate for the new activity, or does it need to reference the other activities we are applying for? So are you? You can
do the reso for COVID just needs to have the COVID activities in it. If you had a reso that you were combining, both the Open NOFA and the COVID money, then you would have to list all of the activities. But if your resolution is only for this CARES Act funding, just put in the activities that you'll be using the CARES Act funding for.
Okay, someone's asking a question about CDBG DR, and unfortunately that is another area that you would need to contact the CDBG DR folks if you have a question regarding that particular funding. We now have a tiny house village. Can we get reimbursement for the $40,000 we paid for the land in November 2019? No, we wouldn't be able to go back and do that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, thank you everybody for attending, and we will get these questions answered and posted up right away. Once they are updated, I will send a direct email out to all of you that have registered to the email addresses that you provided. So you can take a look at that for about the end of the week. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.